So formal good morning to you all. I wanted to hearken back to one of the themes that we did earlier on with David White, was contemplating anger. And he talks about anger.
Good
morning. Anger as the deepest form of compassion. And it's an interesting kind of, it's not just two sides of the coin, but it's these two faces, really. And that anger, in its essence, before it kind of reaches the surface and has to be expressed through a body and a mind that perhaps can't even contain or fully make sense of that anger. But anger also as that which is when it's all of that extraneous expression is stripped away, that it actually is illuminating, as what the poet says, what we belong to, what we wish to protect, and what we're willing to hazard for ourselves. And what we're talking about are these just most essential human values, which is to have freedom from physical danger, to have the freedom to have ease of mind, to have ease in one's body, to feel safe physically and mentally, and to be able to abide in a sense of well-being. And so as we practice this morning, I wanted for us to kind of hold these ideas, because I think that in our own lives and as we look outward, there's a tremendous amount of pain and anger, and that and sometimes we don't even know personally what to do with our own, with others. And so we can cultivate this compassion, not only for others, but also for ourselves. And so we can just begin right there, even having compassion with where we're at in this moment, and allowing ourselves to settle so that things can simply become more clear for us, for ourselves personally, and for what matters to us, and also the wishes that we hold for ourselves, for our loved ones, and for all human beings. So just take a moment and close your eyes, and just let your belly soften. Let your jaw soften. And as the skin of your body softens and the muscles begin to soften, it actually allows the breath to flow more easily. We can be more fully present to what's there in our own awareness, in our own heart. And we can just be more fully present to what is there. towards that innermost living light of our awareness of our own heart. We want to live in that place more fully, to see by the light of that place our heart, our humanity, our compassion. We want to see others as well as ourselves in that light of compassion. Let's join our palms together in front of our hearts. Just honoring yourself wherever you are at today, extending that same honoring to others. Who are finding their way, their freedom. May we have compassion, and may we find a way to create peace amongst all of us. And find your breath. And on your next breath out, just slow that out breath down a little bit. Just drawing into yourself as you breathe out. And take a deep breath in for Om. Just extending your heartfelt wishes of goodness and compassion outward. Bowing your head to your heart. Just breathing out deeply and completely, allowing yourself to settle more deeply into your heart. And just letting that in-breath flow in naturally. And then releasing your hands to your thighs. Keeping your eyes soft, just gently open your eyes and come on to all fours. If you need a little bit of padding underneath the knees, you can go ahead and do that. You just come four square, hands and knees, hands shoulder width apart, knees hip width apart, and then just waiting for the breath as you breathe out. Let the head release. Just let the natural weight, don't pull the head in, just give way to the weight of the head. Draw the tailbone like a grounding line down into the earth. And then as you feel the inhalation coming, open to it. Just open to that breath of freshness, the expansion of that in-breath. Just unfolding your body, unfolding that light within yourself, that settling, exhaling and rounding, and just softening in the belly. Even as you're breathing in, can you not tighten an effort, but just let the body flow with the breath? So for now, we're not tightening the belly. We're just letting the wave in the body shape the body. And we're just moving along with the breath. And just enjoying that. Just releasing, just very innocently on the out breath, not even analyzing it, just releasing the sort of agitations and the various forms that those thoughts may be taking, just letting them gently flow out. And as they leave, make space for that broader, wider, more expansive vision of the heart, seeing from the heart rather than seeing just the surface of things. The ways in which we're more connected in the most profound ways than we're separated. The next time you come to the position where your chest is lifted, curl your toes under and lift your hips and knees, downward facing dog. Keep the knees bent a little bit so the pose is less rigid and a little more malleable so that you can feel your breath as you breathe in. Even come 2 inches towards your fingertips so you can take that breath. And as you exhale, keeping the knees bent from your heart, stretch out through your hands, press your handprints into the floor, and focus on extension through the spine. Send the hips towards the place where the wall meets the ceiling. And just a few times in that way. If you wish, you can stretch the legs straight at the end of the out breath, but then bend them again as you come out, maybe just 1 or 5% to breathe, and then exhale, sending it back through the spine, up towards that place on a diagonal line where the wall meets the ceiling. Keep your handprint clear. It tends to sag into the heels of the hands. So press your weight more firmly out into the base of the fingers, along the fingers into the finger pads, and feel that support and lift all the way up the underseams of the arms, even up into the armpits. Head is just heavy there. Good, and then come on down to your knees, and we're gonna come into Anahatasana, heart pose. So keep the hips over the knees and walk the hands forward. Keep your handprint clear once again. So almost as if you were gonna just very gently make this gesture of letting the heel of the hand come up a bit, simply because you've tilted the weight more towards the base of the fingers. But keep it gentle. And gently lift the inner upper arms. Good, and then coming on up to all fours, come on forward to your belly. Slide your hands back so the fingers are underneath the line of your shoulders. Look down into your heart, and as you breathe in lightly, as if you were going to do cat-cow, lightly lift your belly. And then as you exhale, root your tail, lift your legs, lift your palms. And think about sending the energy from the core of your belly out, streaming out through the legs, the tailbone of the legs, and out through the crown, so that you're parallel, streaming parallel to the floor. And just breathing there. And then placing your hands back down onto the floor. Come on up to all fours and all the way back, child's pose. Then coming up now to all fours, curl your toes under and come on up once more, downward facing dog. Bend your knees, lift your head, and look up towards the top of the mat. And with knees bent, hands on the knees, and pull the tailbone down. Take the arms up overhead, Utkatasana, power pose. See if you can take your hips back and even lift the hips a little bit away from the floor so you've got that curve in the lower back, and then draw the tailbone towards the wall behind you. Inhale and come on up. Exhale your hands to your heart. Lace your hands together behind your back. Looking down into your heart for a moment, let your belly soften. And as you breathe in, see if you can take that breath right where your hands are sitting, there in the place where the low back meets the mid back. Breathe in. Bring that of compassion, even non-judgment, looking just for the essence of that desire for freedom all beings everywhere have. Lift your heart, stretch your elbows straight. Make sure that you haven't lifted your chin, but just keep the throat neutral and breathe. Good, and then releasing the hands. Inhale, take the arms up overhead. Exhale, hips back behind you. Come just 25% of the way into Power Pose, Utkatasana. And now drop the tailbone into the floor to lengthen the low back and lift your heart. Exhale, bow forward, knees bent. Inhale, lift your heart. Stretch your legs straight, heart forward. Exhale and bow. Step your right foot to the back of the mat now and put that right knee down. And we're going to keep that right knee straight up and down as we come up. Come onto the tops of your right foot and then inhale, take the arms up overhead. And we're just staying upright here. First, hugging the inner thighs towards each other. So coming like connecting and referencing that center, the heart. We all wish for safety, physically and mentally. Drop your tailbone down, lift your heart. And now on your next exhale, with that lift and stretch, let the hips come forward just a little bit. Keep hugging in with the inner thighs to keep the hips square. Then we're going to take our left hand. If you have a wall next to you, wonderful. Or I should have asked you to have your block nearby. We're going to take a block and we're going to take a stretch over to that side of the bent leg. Now, if you don't have a block or anything like that nearby, just put your hand on the knee. Hug into the inner thighs and go over. And we're not going to skew or distort, the hips. Even if we don't go quite as far over, just take a nice stretch. Good, and then inhale, come up. Place your hands. And we're going to step back, downward facing dog. And then step the right foot forward, back knee down. And come up. And first just see that you have like a plumb line from the heaven above, down through the crown, down through the spine, down through the tailbone into earth. We're on a right angle with that front leg. Inhale, take the arms up. And on that expansive in-breath, hug the inner thighs towards each other. We want to stay with the essence of what matters. And from there, work more skillfully then to find the means to make that happen. Slide the hips forward now, keeping the hips aligned. Lifting up through the heart, up through the crown. You wish you can lift your head and look up, then take that right hand on the right thigh or on a block. And just take that left arm up and over, palm face towards the ear. Good, and then inhale and come up, place your hands and step back, downward facing dog. Inhale, come forward into plank. If you need to, you can put your knees on the floor. But wherever you are, inhale and lift right there at the base of the ribs. Just creating a puff of air in that lower back. And then keeping the elbows straight, just let your upper, let the shoulders or the heart come towards the floor and then come all the way to the floor. And we're going to take the arms out in front and just fold the right foot in and we're keeping that thigh on the floor. It's just a little easy stretch here, tailbone rooting down, and we're just holding that leg comfortably, the heel in, breathing, is keeping the tailbone long. So that means drawing it towards the back of the mat. Then release that right foot, stretch the right arm out, and clasp that left foot. Just breathing here, tailbone lengthening along that right leg. Think of it drawing, streaming back towards the wall or whatever may be behind you at your feet. Good, and release that leg. Now stretch the both arms out in front of you. And as you breathe in, fill up your low back, exhale, root the tailbone down, lift your right leg, lift the left arm. Hover the right hand just maybe barely a ½ inch from the floor, and then we're gonna come down, left arm, right leg, and inhale, exhale, lift that left leg, right arm lifts, left hand is just very light on the floor. Good, and then exhale and release, and let's go with the breath 2 more times. Inhale, right leg, left arm, light through the right hand. Exhale and release, inhale, left side, right arm, letting the breath flow, light through the left hand. Good, and then releasing. Pull the hands into your Cobra Pose. Root your tailbone down and inhale. Come up, pulling the hands, just a little bit of an pull isometrically towards the hips. Don't come up all the way. Just come up halfway so that you can breathe and feel. Root the tailbone down. Lift up and out of your pelvis as you stretch back through the tailbone, through the legs. And draw your shoulders not down, but straight back and apart. Exhale and release. Press on up to all fours, all the way back into a child's pose. Just breathing here with the arms stretched out in front. And then coming on up to all fours. Curl your toes under. And on the exhale, lift your knees and hips. Downward facing dog. And just pausing here, either with legs straight or knees bent. Arms strong. Taking the weight and evening it out in your hands. Pouring it into your hand prints. And then lifting the head, look up and step up. Pausing here, pull your tailbone down and just take the arms straight out in front of you, parallel to the floor. And just pull that tailbone down until you really feel that grounding and the stretch in the sacrum to the tailbone. And then inhale, lift your heart. Exhale, once again, root the tailbone down. And then inhale, come up. Exhale your hands to your heart. And just pausing here and breathing. Feeling your footprints. The essential right to your place on earth. The very fact of your existence is auspicious. The very fact of every single human being, their very existence is auspicious. Life is meant to be fulfilled in that auspiciousness, and we just wish that for ourselves and for all beings everywhere. Inhale, take your arms up overhead. Exhale, bend your knees, Utkatasana. Exhale, that's Power Pose, bow forward. Inhale, lift your heart, look up. Exhale, step your right foot to the back of the mat, put the back heel down, Warrior one, arms up overhead. Press into that left footprint. So the tendency is we actually go a little unconscious. So really press into the four corners. So you'll actually feel the engagement along your upper thighs, the inner thigh, the outer thigh. Pull the tailbone down, and you can see it's tricky to get a full 90-degree angle in this pose. So that's not where our judgment is. It's really on the knee lined up with that second toe and really full footprint with that left foot. On the inhale, we're going to open it to warrior two. Right hand on the back thigh, crescent back. Exhaling, form to the top of the thigh. Upper arm alongside your ear. And then we're going to take that right hand to the floor. Downward facing dog. And now we're going to take that left foot back and then take it up in the air. Hips square. Hips square. So that outer right hip hugs in as we stretch back. And take that left leg straight back. Now it's moving towards up the wall, towards the place where the wall meets the ceiling, but the hips stay square. Turn that outer left hip under. Good, and then put that foot down. We're going to step the right foot forward. Now put the back heel down and come up. Warrior one. Now I want to do a little something here that we didn't do on the other side, so we'll come back to that. But what I want you to do is pressing into that right foot fully. I want you to come halfway forward. Take the hands back alongside you. Inhale, take the arms up overhead. Exhale, press evenly into the heel and the base of the big toe and outer heel. Good, one more time, exhale. And then inhale now, coming up, we're gonna open to warrior two. Left hand on the back thigh, crescent back. And then on an exhale, right forearm to the top of the thigh. Take the upper arm alongside the ear. Turn your belly up towards the sky. And then here, on an exhale, come back, hands to floor into a lunge. Step that left foot forward and the right foot back. Put that back heel down. Or actually, let's just take it with the back heel up and hug in with the inner thighs. Good. And we'll come up. And then exhale, hugging in with the inner thighs. Inhale up. Exhale. Good. Inhale up. And then hands down, downward facing dog. Inhale, come forward into plank. Knees to floor or come all the way to the floor. Clasp your hands behind your back. Inhale, lift your shoulders. Exhale, root the tail, lift the legs, stretch the hands back, Shalabhasana. Breathe here. Good, and then releasing back to the floor. Place your hands for Cobra. Widen from the center of the heart out through the shoulders. Think about that happening, not just in the front of the chest, but also from the center of the shoulder blades out to the sides of the body. Exhale and release. Come on up and all the way back to child's, just stretching the lower back. And just breathing here. Come on up to all fours now. Again, if you need a little padding for your knees, please put that padding underneath your knees. You just always want to treat the joints with respect. And so, table. The tops of the feet are on the floor. If you need to curl the toes under for greater stability, you can do that. Otherwise, tack the little knuckles of every toe down in the floor. And then we're going to stretch the right leg straight back behind us. The tendency is for the right leg, that hip to roll up. So actually the hips are uneven. And so what we want to do is just turn externally or internally rotate actually that right leg. So it's going to turn in so that the toes are pointing straight to the floor. And you can even put your toes on the floor to check that positioning. In fact, just do that. Put your toes on the floor. And then not changing anything in your hips, lift your leg. Inhale, lightly lift your belly so you have that support, particularly that breath in the low back. And then we're going to keep things pretty steady as we exhale, bring the knee to center without bowing the head. And then inhale, extend back. Exhale, pull the knee into center. Inhale, extend it back. Now we're going to take the knee to the outer elbow. Exhale, knee to elbow. Inhale. Exhale, knee to elbow. And slow it down so that you keep your hips even. One more time. Knee to elbow and back. So everything is steady in your hips. Then, other side. Toes on the floor. So if you can tell, you need to have the big toe and all those other little toes on the floor and then lift the leg without changing anything. Inhale, just bring a puff of breath, space in the low back. So it's like that space that we're trying to find and hold is that space of the heart, that place of softness and clarity. On the exhale, pull the knee to center. Head stays neutral. Inhale back. Exhale, knee forward. Inhale back. One more time. Inhale forward. Exhale back. Now let's take it to the outer elbow. Exhale, knee to elbow. And then straighten out the hips. Exhale, knee to elbow. Keep the hips steady as you come straight back. Exhale. Good. And inhale. Good. Come back to all fours, and we're going to do one more thing here. So stretch the right leg straight, toes on the floor, hips even. Lightly lift the belly, and then lift that right leg up. We're going to exhale, take the knee to center. Inhale, extend it back. Exhale, knee to outer elbow. And now watch here, we're going to actually take the knee, that right leg straight back, and we're going to bend the knee and take it behind the left knee and just arms staying a little bit straight, stretch back, bringing the hips towards the heels. And then we're going to inhale, take that knee to the outer elbow. Exhale. Inhale, knee to elbow. Exhale, square the hips first before you cross the knees. And then just getting that stretch through that right side. Maybe the knees come up a little bit. One more time. Inhale, knee to elbow. Exhale. Good. And then come on back to all fours. Even out your hips. Even out the weight in your hands and stretch that left leg straight. Or try toes on the floor first to just really even the hips and then lift the leg. Inhale, lightly lift the belly. Exhale, knee to center. Inhale, extend back. Exhale, knee to elbow. Inhale, extend back. Good. Now, one more time. Knee to elbow. And then we're gonna cross that knee, left knee behind the right knee, and just stretch the hips to the heels. Inhale, squaring the hips, left knee, left elbow, exhaling, coming back. And just do that 2 or 3 more times in your own time with your breath. Good, and then finishing just with that leg stretch straight back. Bring that left knee to the floor. And just put that blanket aside now. And we're going to go ahead and take downward facing dog. Then come on down to your knees and all the way forward onto your belly. Reach your left hand out in front of you. Actually, let's take both hands out in front and come up on your fingertips. And as you press into your fingertips, see if you can actually lift right here in the shoulders so that you're snugging the arm bones. It's like you're pulling energy. You might even have to move your hands in a little bit to snug your upper arm bone into your shoulder joints. And we're going to keep that in the right hand. And then we're going to just let the left hand rest on the floor. Look down towards the floor. Find your breath. And then we're going to inhale. Lift the heart, exhale, root the tail. And then we're going to lift that right leg. Keep the hip turned under. And then we're going to lift the left arm and touch the thumb and the index finger. And then lift that left leg. And then the right arm. Good. And then release. Come up on the fingertips of the left hand. I'm going to lift the left leg. And then on the exhale, root the tail and lift up both legs. Touch the thumb and the index finger. And let's root that right leg down and just see the difference. Good, and then come down. Pull the hands in. Come on up to all fours. Slide your hips back into a child's pose. Just breathing here. And then from here, coming on up to all fours, we're going to take a pigeon pose. So we can just, to support ourselves, if the hips are tight, you can just roll your blanket, keep it to one side. And so as we take the right knee forward, it can be on a spectrum from straight ahead towards that upper corner of the mat. Let me just adjust myself here for you. And then the heel is in that hip pocket of the left leg. And what we can do is kind of come forward and just take that blanket, slide it between your right foot and your left leg. And then we have a nice little support for ourselves. And here again, we're aiming to keep the hips level. So there's sort of an isometric action where we're pulling from the right hip to the right knee to the right hip. And we're isometrically pulling from the left knee into the left hip so that there's an evenness here. So that it's not lopsided. So that we can allow that part of the body that tends to be dominant, and we'll sort of take over the pose, which is usually we'll sink over to the right side just because that's like the easiest thing to do. And then this side, which really is what needs the stretch even more sometimes, or it's vice versa. So we're just trying to find this equal action. And then just coming forward onto your forearms for a few moments. A few breaths here. If there's any pain in the knee, it means you need to back off, and we can always take that, wonderful pose on our backs where we just cross an ankle over a knee and we get that stretch in the hip without creating not good action in our knees, in our hips rather. Knees or hips. Sometimes it's the knees, sometimes it's the hips that we need to take care of. Go ahead now, we're going to come on up. So we'll slide the left knee forward, or we'll switch. We're on the floor. And if we're using the blanket, we'll just slide that right through between the left foot and that right hip pocket. And then we just take this moment to align. And it becomes significant of also just alignment with the heart. Can we see with the eyes of the heart before everything? And just aligning with that. As we align the hips, there's more truth there. A pose that goes deep but is deeply misaligned has no truth to it. So we're just isometrically pulling in. So it's that action of kind of hugging in with the inner thighs to center, but also we can think about the energy flowing from the left knee isometrically back through the left hip, and then forward from the back knee isometrically pulling. The knee stays put, and yet there's action happening. So the hips are more square, and then we come on to the forearms and we breathe. And we just be present to the dynamic of the pose, the play of thoughts, and just holding to that deeper foundation, that place we have to actually witness what is happening in our minds, in our bodies, and to have a choice. How do we want to respond? What do we want to do? Will our action add to clarity, or will it do the opposite? Will it add to love, or will it take away? Okay, we're going to go ahead and take the hands back, and then as skillfully as you can, extricate yourself. One way to do this is to kind of lift your hips, and then inhale, bring that puff of breath into the belly and lift yourself up to dog or back to all fours. And wherever you are, you can take a child's, a half child's, or a dog pose. Good, and then come on down to your knees. And I want you to just take a seat and take your blankets, or if you have a towel, I'm gonna come close and see how you guys are doing. How are you guys doing? Okay, good. So I want you for this next piece, if you have a towel or a blanket. So this is my yoga blanket. If I was using a towel, I would just kind of unfold it so it's on the rectangle. And so we want to make a slightly smaller roll. And so this is what we'll do. We'll just roll the edge, the long edge, that is, okay? And then you're gonna put it just a little bit from the top of your mat. Now, if you have an extra blanket or a towel or a hand towel, I'd like you to just put that here. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do some opening along the back of the body. And what I want you to do is this first position is quite high up on the shoulder blades. So the roll is going to be in your armpits. Not in your armpits, but just underneath your armpits. So what happens is that your chest is lifted, but your shoulders are moving in the direction of the floor. And if you need a little bit of support for your neck, you can just create that little bit of support with an extra blanket or towel or anything, a t-shirt, whatever you have to hand. And we'll just start here with the knees bent. And just allowing the upper body to surrender to the support of the roll. If it's uncomfortable, you can unroll your blanket so it's the right size for you. That's going to give you a sense of opening in the front of the chest and a sense of held support in the upper back. But that is gentle enough that you can just give way to it, to that support. And just letting the front of the body go soft. You might feel perfectly happy with the knees bent. Or if you wish, you can stretch the legs straight. Whatever feels best. Our aim here is that softening in the body and the mind that allows us to be more available and present to ourselves and to others. It's when we are trapped in those more surface, agitated states of mind that we lose our connection with the heart, with that view of humanity, with that fundamental compassion that is truly wired into us. Just continue letting the belly soften. Just cueing in to that firm support in your upper back, behind your heart. That steady, ever-present foundation within yourself that allows you to see with a more open heart, even as this pose, with the support of the bolster, allows the chest and more subtly the heart to open. The body reflecting a more expansive inner state of mind. We're going to go ahead now and shift positions. And we're going to just kind of as easily and gently, smoothly as we can, we want to kind of just inch in the direction of the head so that we begin to bring that roll now right at the mid-back. It's really the area at the kidneys and the adrenals. And sort of a juncture place between the low and the mid-back. So just kind of scoot yourself with bent legs, again, in the direction of your head. So without too much effort, the roll is now in this lower part of your back. And here, you can keep the knees bent or stretch the legs straight. It's very interesting. In some ways, the bent knee position is a little stronger, and you can just see what feels better. Just those adrenals and the kidneys, of course. The kidneys are just a prime detoxifying. You know, it flushes out the poisons. And then the kidneys that carry the sense of well-being in our chemistry and all these internal systems in the body. So we have this gentle pressure and support there. As we just breathe easy here, just a very gentle massage to those organs there, and to the muscles. You just sense the very gentle stretch and opening there in the diaphragm. One of the places that when we are in distress gets very tight. We literally, when we're in distress, are unable to see more expansively. We get a kind of tunnel vision. And here we can just rest back into that more expansive place within ourselves. We want to be able to hold that ground of love and compassion. We're going to now move the blanket the roll into another place. And you can either do this by simply moving again up towards your head, or you can just lift your hips and just pull the roll down now underneath your sacrum. So the sacrum is that place between your low back and the tailbone. And then stretch your legs straight. And you can, even as you stretch your legs straight, just can kind of lengthen there in the low back by kind of lightly pressing into your head and your elbows and just lengthening towards in the back body, not the front body, but just kind of lengthening out the lower spine in the direction of your head. And then same thing here. Just letting the belly be soft. Just allowing that tension held in the low back to release the little fibers and knots of tension, just releasing there at the base of the spine. And in the sacrum. Again, you can, if you prefer, keep bent knees. Whatever position you're choosing, just let your awareness now drift into the area of the groins, the hip flexors, that place where the thigh bone meets the hip joint. Fear and tension are held in these hip flexor muscles. They're just a kind of unconscious flexion to protect. And so here we can just let ourselves just unfold, unroll that sort of self-protective position. Just letting the hip flexors experience this state of calm, safety. And then the knees in now. Lift the hips and just pull. You can actually just kind of push that blanket just down to a place between the above the knees and on the thighs if you want that support for Shavasana, or you can just pull it out all the way and just rest back in Shavasana. Please now step your feet in and just clasp your knees and rock from side to side. And please roll over onto your right side and just take a comfortable seat. And we'll practice the very famous loving kindness meditation. This quality, Maitri, is the word. It's a very, very important word in both the yoga and the Buddhist tradition, meaning loving kindness, benevolence, friendliness, amity, active interest in others. And so we'll do this practice just sending these wishes outward today to others. Just be comfortable where you're sitting. Just close your eyes. And think inwardly. May all beings everywhere be free from danger. Both in their bodies and in their minds. Just gently repeat this inwardly. Allowing the words to just rest in your awareness. As we wish this for ourselves, we wish this for all beings everywhere. May all beings everywhere have mental happiness and peace of mind. May all beings everywhere have physical happiness. May all beings everywhere have ease of well-being. In the words of great wisdom teacher Sharon Salzberg, may all individuals happy, suffering, causing suffering, still they wish to be happy, to be free. May it be so. And all those in existence, every being, all places, may they be able to realize the fruits of just what it is we wish for ourselves. And please join your palms together in front of your heart, and let's finish by chanting one Om together. And through the vibratory quality of this ancient mantra, venerable mantra, sending those wishes of benevolence, loving kindness, friendliness, amity, compassion to others, all beings everywhere. With your next breath, breathe deeply out. And together, let's take a deep breath in. Namaste.